Hello, welcome back to another SwansCast match preview. Been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these, a bit of illness and obviously international break, but I'm here ahead of Swansea's trip to Southampton, and I'm joined by Steve from the Total Saints podcast. So thank you very much for joining me, Steve. Can you give us a bit of an introduction to what you do at Total Saints and yourself, and let us know where we can find some of your work as well, please?
Yeah, so obviously Total Saints podcast we've been running since I think 2017. So yeah, been around a while now. Originally started audio only, but now much like yourselves, we're very much sort of video focused. Um, Putting our stuff out on YouTube and all the socials. Everybody can find us on YouTube at Total Saints Podcast and on all the socials at Total Saints Pod. I don't think we had enough. Don't think we had the character limit to be consistent across all of those.
There's always one platform that takes your name as well, isn't there?
Yeah. I think we got away with that. I don't think anybody's spoofed us or anything like that yet. So must be doing something right at the moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great. So go check that out. I was on there earlier in the week to preview this game for the reverse of this sort of chat. So if you want to go and check that out, I think it's available now. So on YouTube and the platforms just mentioned. Okay, so let's get into it. I like to start these videos off a little bit of a reflection of last season. Obviously, for yourselves, it's a bit different to most of the clubs I talk to doing these videos with the relegation back to the championship. So can you maybe talk a little bit about how your season went in line with maybe the expectation, and then what happened? Like, was that what you thought was going to happen, or was it a bit worse than expected? And obviously, we've got the added bonus of you perhaps giving a little bit of a insight into your end of life with Russell Martin as well, which I'm sure some Swans fans might be interested to hear about, but don't have to be detailed. But yeah, just a brief of what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of expectations, I think expectations were that we would compete, but probably not have enough.
Yeah.
So I think people were thinking maybe 25 to 30 points, which, I mean, in any season isn't going to be enough to keep you in the Premier League, but that we would at least be competitive. And I mean, in fairness, the first month to 6 weeks or so, even though we weren't getting results, performances were absolutely fine. And we were either getting done over by an individual mistake, like we should have won it. We should have won at Newcastle on the opening day, but Alex McCarthy passed the ball to Alexander Isak 8 yards from goal with inevitable consequences. And it kind of escalated from there, really, I guess. I think there probably came a point around October, November where, weirdly, given everybody's kind of view on Martin as like Russell Martin as this real sort of dogmatic, I'm going to do this this way, regardless of what outcome I see. Actually, he started chopping and changing, and I think that the point where he almost kind of lost faith in himself was probably the point at which it was like, this is coming to a fairly swift conclusion. And the Tottenham game, where he was obviously sacked that night, literally within about an hour and a half of the game finishing. The first half we were 5-0 down, 1-0 down, basically straight from kickoff, and you could just sense it in the air at that time that it was like, this is done. There's no kind of coming back from this, and it's a shame, really, because the job he did to get us up the year previously was excellent. Like, I think his man management has been massively underrated in the kind of noise about tactical systems and being inflexible, supposedly, and this, that, and the other. But actually, he was presented with a squad that was an absolute mess, having obviously got relegated the first time. And that was probably a squad that probably shouldn't have got relegated, really. It was just some, like, you have a summer of bad recruitment and things start badly. The board panicked and sacked Ralph Hasenhüttl, which I still think if we'd kept him, we'd have stayed up. So he's inherited this mess, and it's basically 3 managers worth of signings already in the space of a year. And we've dealt with obviously losing the likes of James Ward-Prowse, Romeo Lavia, Nathan Teller, people like that for pretty big money. And he's had to kind of juggle the uncertainty of, well, is this player going to be leaving? Is that player staying? Who am I actually going to be working with this season? And frankly, he didn't know right up until the end of the transfer window. And then having got there, we had September was terrible. We lost all 4 games that month. But then once we got through the back end of that, all of a sudden he'd kind of got everybody sorted. Everybody knew their roles, and they bought into what he was trying to do. And that comes from being able to kind of sell your vision to these players.
Yeah.
And we went 25 games unbeaten, which did the bulk of the heavy lifting in terms of getting us into position where we could succeed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the job that he did. I mean, obviously from a Swansea perspective, it all kind of ended fairly acrimoniously just because of the way he left, I think.
That's,
but I think
I think discontent with the ownership, and he was quite public about it.
Yeah, I think ultimately he probably saw the way the wind was blowing in terms of being able to bring in the players that he wanted, keep the players he wanted at Swansea and at Southampton. While obviously there was always going to be a lot of flux in terms of the squad makeup, the strength of squad that he was going to be working with was always naturally going to be a lot stronger, and therefore I think his style of football. I mean, obviously he's massively disproven this at Rangers, but I think his style of football works when you have better players. I think if you've got centre backs who are comfortable on the ball and can receive the ball with their from the keeper with players kind of behind them, and they're comfortable in that environment, then the system can work. The problem comes when you don't have better players than teams you're coming up against, and they're able to press you and make you really uncomfortable. And that's basically what we found when we took the step up, was that the level of opposition just made the style of football so difficult. I mean, the players tried it. They were. You could clearly see that they were trying to play that way, and that was the way they wanted to play. It wasn't like they were going out on the pitch and completely disregarding instructions and stuff like that, which I think it would have been very noticeable if that had been the case, and that they just didn't have faith in what the manager was telling him. They were quite happy to do it. It just wasn't working. So yeah, it was disappointing, really, because I liked him as kind of a person. Spoke to him a couple of times in pre-season, and like his ideas for the game and how he wanted us to play. But like that, the first summer when he first came in, he was kind of stressing that, look, you're going to have to be a little bit patient with me. These players are obviously used to playing a certain way under obviously Nathan Jones before, and even Ralph Hasenhüttl was very it was a reactive style of play rather than proactive. You've got to play a different way in the Championship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, last season ultimately was obviously an absolute disaster. But I think we were done out of a lot of points in that sort of first quarter of the season, where kind of you're I don't know, you're kind of
you're up against it already then.
Yeah, you're kind of thinking that referees are up against you, VAR's up against you. I mean, we had a goal against Brighton that was ruled out, which would have won us the game down there. And about a month previously away at Arsenal had a goal allowed for exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, what can you do when you've just got that absolute nonsense?
Yeah.
Where a referee is applying the rule in a completely different way for different teams. You just think, well, this is just absolute garbage. And there were so many sort of tight calls that we were on the wrong end of. that we felt should have earned us points. I think when Martin was sacked, we had 5 points from, I think, 14, 15 games. I think we should have had double that, probably 10, 12 points going into Christmas. And actually, as a team with the recruitment that we had done and with the squad strength that we didn't have, I think that would have been a perfectly kind of acceptable situation to be in. And then, okay, you can look at what you're going to do in January, and can you get a bit of quality in, even if it's on loan, just to kind of push you on a little bit, and then maybe push you up to the 30-point mark. You then give yourself a chance. But when you're going into Christmas with 5 points, it's just like the game's up already, and you're almost going through the motions. Wasn't last season was not fun on any measure whatsoever, unfortunately.
I think it made some Swansea fans feel like they're glad that they didn't go up with him for whatever reasons, rightly or wrongly. But I
think Leeds fans definitely thought they got away with one.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, definitely. I think you're right though. He needs the higher quality players to make it work really well. It's probably why he didn't. I mean, there was times at Swansea where it did, and then there was times where it was quite poor. Like before he came to you guys, if you went back 10 games earlier, he was on the verge of being sacked. So he
but then didn't he win the last 6 or something?
It was 7 wins in 9 with the other 2 games there being draws, which shot us up the table. But like before that, he was on the verge of being sacked. But then that little 9-game period completely changed the narrative all of a sudden, and then he gets this big move. I think you're right. I think the move would have probably happened anyway. He just spun it in a way in the media that all the fans that supported him, because he did build a bit of a following here with the whole trust the process, be patient, like got a lot of fans on board with that.
It is a bit of a cult, isn't it?
And it's still
the manager.
Still there.
There's quite a few managers like this, aren't there, that kind of engender a real sort of groundswell of support from a faction of the fan base.
And you go on social media after the sacking of Rangers, and they're all like, "Oh, come home." So you still see it now, but I think like you're clearly right in what you're saying. And he I think he would have built something over a longer period of time. But I also think that it's absolutely correct to call him out for the period of games where he nearly got sacked, where it was something ridiculous like 3 wins in 24 games. And when you remember, we only finished 3 points off the playoffs that season. That 24-game spell of form, it really has cost you.
Yeah, you only needed a very marginal improvement in that period, and you'd have been in that lottery, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So it was 3 or 4 points or something. I can't remember exactly, but one or two of the games, I can name you one where it's 3-point chucked away right now, and there was a game where we were at home. I can't remember the team we were against right now, but we were winning 2-1 in 90 minutes, and we lost the game 3-2. So,
oh Jesus,
yeah, and that was in that period of time. So it's there's things right there that you can say was a problem. He spent more time criticizing the board, but the lack of January transfers that kind of derailed our season because he was throwing his toys out the pram. Where he came out then in the press conference after we ended the rut and he got that first win on that 9-game sequence, where he said, like, I had to take a step back and look at myself and refocus because obviously I haven't been doing a good enough job as manager. And then we went on that winning run. So he's called himself out a bit, but I think it just gets forgotten. But that's enough about him anyway. Let's move on to this season. Obviously at Southampton, it's all changed now. Obviously got relegated, got a new manager. Will Still has come in. So can you talk about maybe what you're expecting going into this year? Is it an immediate return? Is it at least challenging for an immediate return? Or are you a bit more like, let's start again, let's rebuild with a new structure, new manager? And what other changes maybe have we seen at Southampton over the summer that are worth talking about?
Yeah, I think ultimately obviously when we were down in the Championship 2 years ago, we'd not been down there for more than a decade. So obviously things change, and you're not quite sure what the sort of respective standard is. But then having seen what the standard was 2 years ago and having got ourselves out of it the first time of asking, I think a lot of people came down expecting us to be genuinely challenging. I think there was a little bit more of a step into the unknown 2 years ago. This season, we've got a much better handle on what we're kind of up against. Which is why the start has been a little bit underwhelming. but again, we'll still another manager coming into a situation where there's always going to be a lot of change, and we've moved on a lot of players, we've brought in a lot to replace, and there's a lot of change, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in modern football, you don't really get as much time as you probably think you either need or deserve. So got off to a decent start. Obviously, won at Wrexham one at home to Wrexham on the opening day in fairly spectacular style. Two goals in injury time to turn that game around. But it's been bitty, I would say, so far. We've created a lot of chances in games and failed to kind of put them away, and basically it has kind of felt like every team we've played against has been really ruthless in their finishing, whereas we've been the complete polar opposite.
Yeah.
So we create loads of chances, miss them all. Opposition goes down. We slack off for 1 minute, and the opposition cut through us and score, and that's kind of been the story of how we've played. It feels like we've not conceded any goals that haven't been preventable. So defensively, we've looked shaky, which I think is to be expected. I mean, we've still got quite a few of the defence from 2 years ago, which, even though we got promoted, we still conceded 60 goals. So yeah, I think still has a little bit of a dilemma in terms of how to offer the best protection for the defence, while still being able to get as many of the attacking players that we've got at our disposal on the pitch. But his big problem now is at centre forward, because in their infinite wisdom, whoever's been in charge of recruitment, which I think is our sporting director Johannes Spors, basically thought that we could basically go the whole season with Ross Stewart as our main number 9, which if you were able to get him out on the pitch for every game, would be absolutely fine. But his fitness situation over the last, well, I mean, we signed him two and a half years ago, and I think he's played 15, 20 games, none of which were 90 minutes.
Didn't he have a bad record before you signed him?
Yeah, so we signed him injured. Yeah. Like literally, he'd been out for 4 months when we signed him from Sunderland, with an Achilles injury, and he kind of recovered from that about a month or so after he joined us. But then, sort of in the recovery, he picked up a hamstring injury that then kept him out for 3 months. And it's just been one thing after another, unfortunately, with him. I mean, there were signs like the week before the international break, we obviously had the 3 games in a week, and he played against Middlesbrough on the Saturday for about an hour, did okay. Played against Sheffield United in midweek, scored twice, including an absolute belter to win it. But then the medical team seemingly thought it was a good idea for him to start again at Derby on the Saturday. And 25 minutes into the game, he goes for a diving header and his hamstring goes ping. And he's now looking at probably 4 months out again. We don't have another centre forward in his profile. The way he'd integrated into the team, we just looked like a much more functioning unit. Whereas Adam Armstrong is much better playing sort of wide off the right. That was what he did under Russell Martin as well, and obviously got 25 goals that season. And he's looked good out in that position. We try and move him into the middle, and he looks a bit lost. Cameron Archer hasn't quite been firing. And the only other centre forward we've got is Damien Downs, a US international who we signed from Cologne in the summer. But he was clearly signed as a kind of one for the future. He's got good attributes, but we're not going to expect too much from him too soon. Unfortunately, with Stewart's fitness, it meant that Downs had to play because we didn't have anybody else who's taller than 5'10" to play up front. And he's looked all at sea. He's looked. I mean, he missed an absolute sitter against Wrexham, which turned into an assist for Jack Stevens for the winner. But he basically missed an open goal from 6 yards out. And he did the same at Northampton in the Cup a week later. And as a result, his confidence is already sort of drained out of him. You can see he looks an absolute shell of a man at the moment. And unfortunately, we're going to be relying quite heavily on him, I think, unless we can come up with some kind of, I mean, maybe Finn Azaz can play as a false 9 as he did for, because I think he did that for Ireland in midweek and did okay. Maybe that's an option, but it's not ideal. And you're now, I mean, we're already playing catch up with the teams at the top, and we're going to have to do so without kind of a central sort of attacking focal point. It presents a bit of a tactical challenge, I think, for Will Still. Big test for him.
Speaking of his tactics, what is the sort of game plan at the moment under Will Still? Then we all know what Russell Martin brought to the table. Last time we met, probably, I think, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know, I think we played in the cup after he was sacked. But when you were in the league last time for those 2 games, obviously Russell Martin was in charge. We know exactly what he was bringing. But what are we going to see from Southampton now under Will Still?
It's very different. The energy is higher when we don't have the ball, so we are pressing reasonably high. It's not kind of an all out sort of gegenpress or anything like that, because there's just too many games to be able to sustain that sort of effort. But the intensity is a lot higher when we don't have the ball, especially in the opposition half. So we will be pressing the front 3 will be pressing to try and win the ball back in high areas, and we look to play kind of through the middle, sort of fairly direct, I think, when sort of in transition. But when we are kind of building, it's a little bit, it is still a little bit methodical. You're trying to kind of create spaces between the lines, so there will be a little bit of the old Russell Martin, play it around at the back and try and draw the press from the opposition and then play over the top. But Will Still has said he likes wide players. He likes to get crosses into the box. The problem with saying you want to get crosses into the box is who's getting on the end of them, and that comes back to the central striker problem that we now have kind of created for ourselves. So there's a bit of a mishmash of stuff at the moment, and it's probably going to take. I mean, frankly, it might even take until the end of January when we can get some reinforcements in again, before kind of our real sort of style of play becomes sort of really apparent. I think for the time being, Still's going to be quite pragmatic and look at the qualities and weaknesses of a particular opponent and try and tailor our game a little bit and tweak it week by week to see what works and what doesn't. I think there are obviously teams in this division that are particularly weak on set pieces, so there'll be some. I remember you said on our pod the other day that's a problem for you, and I'd be amazed if we've not been working on those for the last 2 weeks, because things like set piece weakness, it's stuff that you can see in the stats. It's training ground. It's very very obvious. So you can work on that, and but I think in terms of us being a dominant team and having a real defined style that we go into every game playing the same way because we don't care what the opposition are going to do to us because we think we're going to be stronger than them, I don't think we'll see that for some time yet.
Fair enough. Obviously, former Swansea players Ryan Manning, Nathan Wood, still at Southampton. Missing someone, aren't I? Flynn Downs.
Yep, Downs. Downs has been out of the team for certainly the last 2 or 3 games, because we signed Kasper Yander, a young German central midfielder, right at the end of the transfer window, and he's got himself into the team and has done quite well. Downs has been a little bit underwhelming, given how much he utterly dominated the division 2 years ago.
He's a Russell Martin boy though, and he absolutely brought him with him.
Yeah, the Martin system was almost kind of designed perfectly for Flynn Downs. The still system doesn't quite fit him. Yanda's looked very good. Shea Charles has been brilliant. So at the moment, there's no place for him. I mean, perhaps when I think Still would prefer us to go to a back four. We've done it in a couple of games, but it was our two worst performances against Portsmouth and Hull. So that got kind of discarded after the defeat at Hull. But I imagine we will still probably end up back at a back four at some point this season. But it's going to be a gradual process, I think. If as and when we do get back to a back four, then there's probably a place for Downs back in the team as the kind of holding pivot, and you allow either Charles or Yanda to go to be a little bit more adventurous and go forward. But for the time being, it's Downs is picking splinters on the bench. Wood has been excellent. Manning's been very good. So those two are pretty much set in stone in the starting lineup at the moment. Wood was quite a latecomer into the team, really, because we obviously started with Jack Stevens and Taylor Harwood-Bellis, who are, Jack Stevens obviously club captain, and Harwood-Bellis we paid 20 million for from Manchester City as soon as we won that playoff final. But both of them have underwhelmed a little bit. Harwood-Bellis has just been just ranked rubbish for most of the season so far. Stevens at least gets a little bit of a pass in terms of that he's one of our only sort of real leaders in the squad. Yeah, it's been a real problem for us over the last couple of years is where the leadership comes from. Stevens is very good at organising other people. He's less good at organising his own game. That's kind of the problem, and one of the reasons why I think after that Hull disaster, both of those got unceremoniously dropped, and we haven't lost a game since. So I think they'll both be waiting for their chance to get back in the team.
Be interesting to come up against Manning and Woods. Manning is obviously a wind-up merchant.
He loves a bit of it, doesn't he?
Yeah. Is he still playing off the left view? Because I know he can come into midfield on occasion. I've seen him being quite high up in the league stats for key passes. I think tied to a Mac Rhymes for third when I last checked, and that's
scored a couple of free kicks fans as well.
Yeah, he's got a good set piece delivery as well, isn't he, from dead ball situations and shots. So there we go. Hopefully he can't do that against us when we do meet. Would there be any Swansea City players that, you've had a few in the past, as we just mentioned, but any of the current team that you would look at and like to slot into your current Southampton squad?
I always liked Grimes. We were linked with him.
He's not here anymore, so you can't have him now. No, he's gone to Coventry, and he's
of course he did.
He's running away up the top of the league
because he was because you got him from Exeter, didn't you? For very little. Because I remember we certainly had our eye on him back then. I must admit, I've completely lost track of Swansea's squad over the years, because since you went down,
changed quite a lot.
There's been so much change, and you obviously went through that brief period under a couple of managers where that the whole kind of Swansea way that was almost marketed as such kind of vanished for a year or two, and you kind of just blended back into the pack with everybody else. I must admit, I lost complete track of who was good, who wasn't. Unfortunately, I've not got a particular name for you at the moment.
Maybe you can answer the question after the game on Saturday. But
yes,
yeah, that's all right. No worries. I know sometimes not everyone's going to know the players, especially this year. We've had quite a few ones in the summer that have come into the first team, so it is still early days in the season. Okay, that's fine. So I want to end with asking your match prediction for this one. Then, how do you see this game going on the weekend?
Lunchtime kickoffs I find just horrible to predict, because
especially after an international break, it's a bit
the atmosphere the atmosphere generally is never quite the same, because everybody's still kind of waking up, really.
Well, you're on your coffees rather than your beers, and you.
Exactly. And but I think, having had 2 weeks to kind of stew on what didn't quite go right in the second half at Derby, I'd like to think that we kind of come out with a little bit of oomph and kind of get the crowd going. And I think these lunchtime games, it's kind of on the players to get the fans up rather than the other way round. I think the 3 o'clock and later games, the fans have got a bit more responsibility. But I think these early ones, if the players get us going early, then yeah, we could. It could be one of those games where we start well and just everything clicks together. I do think there will be a game at some point in the next, between now and the next international break, where things click and we give somebody a hiding. I don't necessarily think it'll be this week, but we've got a few games that you look on paper and you think, okay, they look like ones that we should be winning pretty comfortably. But I think, yeah, I mean, as I say, if we start well, if we can get a lead in the first 15, 20 minutes, then I think it could be relatively comfortable. But the longer it goes on, the more nervous everybody gets.
Yeah.
And our crowd does seem to be particularly sort of edgy, which is understandable given the crap they had to witness last season. But yeah, it doesn't help. But I do. I mean, I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. That's for certain. We just don't do those. The only clean sheet we kept so far was against Pompey in a game that basically neither team did anything. So yeah, I think we'll sneak it. I'll go for a 2-1, but it'll be from 2-0 up, and you'll make it a nervous end.
I mean, I think it would be a tight game as well. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the scoreline in the end. And everywhere I've put a prediction, and I've said 1-1 really, other than our own podcast where we're banned 1-1, so I can't say 1-1. But yeah, I'll say 1-1. I think low scoring, we don't tend to score a lot. I think clean sheets have been hard for us as well. Seems like there's a lot of similar themes there, really. So it's one of those where just, on paper, it's screaming out for something like that, or a very tight swing in either direction, depending on what happens on the day, which sounds like the most sitting on the fence answer. But generally speaking, every single game this season's kind of been that narrative where on another day it could have gone the other way, or our way where it hasn't, stuff like that. So it's just really hard at the moment to predict a lot of what we're seeing. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I do like to ask one other question at the end, which is not necessarily football related, just to sort of end on a bit of a novelty note. So if you could visit Wales, is there one place you would like to come, and why would that be? Where you'd go?
I mean, I must admit, I've been to Wales quite a lot. Obviously done.
But you could talk about places you'd like to come then, if you want.
Yeah, I don't know actually. I mean, I've basically done all the main football grounds. So I've done obviously both the Cardiff ones.
Was that like 3 of them?
Yourselves, Newport, Wrexham.
Yeah.
I've already ticked off Wrexham when Sutton United went there, because they're local to me. Back when Wrexham were a proper club in the National League.
Oh.
But
I'm sure that's going to go down well in some quarters.
Yep. Playing for the audience there. But no, I mean, I do like my trips to Wales, but I always find it's the weather is basically one end of the spectrum or the other. It's always either glorious sunshine or pissing rain. And if you get the pissing rain version, it's like, oh God, get me home quickly.
Yeah.
But no, I was actually at a wedding in just outside Neath last month. And we got lucky with the weather there, and that was absolutely glorious.
I was trying to think of venues just outside.
It was a vineyard. Oh God, I can't remember the name of the place.
I can Google now. It's fine.
Yes. It was. I mean,
it's basically on my doorstep. That's only reason.
It must have cost my mate an absolute fortune. But it was absolutely great day, and lovely.
That's what they are these days. Expensive.
Yeah, lovely venue. Somewhere like that. If you could kind of bottle that up and kind of sort of put that environment kind of anywhere in the world, it'd be like, this is great. Yeah,
there's a lot of lovely places in Wales generally. That's why I like to ask, because you just sometimes tell you things that I don't know about, and I didn't know about this vineyard, so I'm going to go find out, because it literally probably is down the road from where I live, without disclosing that. but based in a Neath area. So, yeah, brilliant to have you on. Thank you really for the insight you've given us into Southampton. Can you just remind everyone where they can find Total Saints and the stuff that you do on the podcast as well?
Yep. So we are on YouTube mainly for all our content. So that's at Total Saints Podcast and on all the socials. X, Blue Sky, Instagram, possibly TikTok, Twitch, I think, even sometimes, and LinkedIn.
Does that work well for you? Because we were looking at
Twitch. We don't get many viewers through there, but
just one sure football audience uses the platform.
Not a huge amount, but the ones that do view there always view through there. So it's quite a sort of steady, sort of loyal audience through Twitch, I find. But yeah, all the socials are on Total Saints Pod.
Okay, brilliant. So go check that out. All the stuff will be linked below anyway. As I said, there was their version of this video was within a podcast earlier this week. I think it was recorded Sunday, maybe released. Oh, was it live Sunday night?
It was live. Live stream.
It's out there.
Yep, out in the world.
Yeah, so go check that out, and we shall catch you on the next video. Hopefully, we'll have a positive result to discuss after this weekend. So good luck for the rest of your season. After the weekend, of course, the cliche line that everyone always says. But
you too.
We gotta look out for your own team when it comes to the match day. But I'll chat to you perhaps later in the season.
Yes, we'll do.
There we go. Thank you very much.